Glad you joined us in the desert sun with the new Porsche Panamera GTS. We're going to examine with you together the exterior, interior and the driving experience, both normal on the road, everyday driving, and today here also on the Bahrain International Formula One circuit with this very vehicle. And Autogefühl, your #1 resource for in-depth car reviews and the #1 community to discuss cars with Thomas. This full review in full HD, full screen and full length. Let's go! This is the GTS in the front. You can see it has black accentuations together with this carmine red color. We will soon also show you different colors. Then also has some different air intakes in the lower part, and the headlamps have also a black background. Comes then with adaptive LED headlamps in this 4-dot design. And overall the new Panamera generation, a very strong front with those two design lines here on the hood. Very interesting. I think the red color also is symbolic for the GTS. That's why we picked the red color for you here today. Oh, and by the way, maybe you've noticed those are the optional carbon ceramic brakes you can get. Of course, they're at the price where someone else would buy a whole car for. Interesting material detail, by the way. Oh, the sand crouched in here already. So this one here, the top part is metal. And the lower one is plastic. Metal. Plastic. And it's not really like, oh, that's so cheap. It makes sense that the front bumper is from plastic, easier to replace. It's better that it also bends maybe a little bit and it's not directly damaged. It makes sense, also saves some weight. Why not? But interesting detail. 5.05 or 16'6" at the total length of this Panamera generation. You can see if you compare it to the previous generation, it has a more floating design, more looks like a bigger 911 than this egg-style design before. But this one, you might have seen it already, is the Sport Turismo, the estate version that's just a little bit higher in the rear end. You get it for a couple of €1,000 extra in price. Besides that, most of the stuff is the same. We will also soon show you the Sedan. Here also the Sport Turismo in different colors. We have, for example, also a white car for you, just to show you. Then there is this Mamba Green. This one here, the main car is carmine red, and some other colors, for example, a silver we discovered here on location as well. Soon also the sedans in all colors. Then rims, it starts with 19-inch, goes up to 21-inch. 20-inch would be standard for the GTS. Those ones are the optional 21-inch. This here also in the black GTS design, Spider style, but you can also get a bright Spider style if you like, or some other variation of black dark rims. The Sport Turismo does have something with the black wing right here. Some also find it more attractive. In Europe, 50% go for the Sport Turismo nowadays, and worldwide about a quarter already. And this will, I think, even increase. Strong shoulder line right there, typically Porsche. What do you think? Are you more Sport Turismo or Sedan? And some more colors for you. Here the Sedan, Sapphire Blue Sedan, Mamba Green Sedan, and the chalk grey or chalk white Sedan. In the rear you can see the light strip going all around the vehicle, and then again the LED daytime running lights even more present. The Sport Turismo just looks a little bit different, it's a little bit higher in this area there with the black wing, but they are of course both pretty much alike. The GTS also features this black sports exhaust. So 4 pipes, and those are real, they're not fake at all. Also the 3-chamber air suspension that starts with the Panamera 4S. It's also standard with the GTS, but here it sits 10 millimeters lower to give a little sportier touch to the whole vehicle. And you'll also get the very same V8 engine with that, and then with the turbo, a little bit different horsepower spec. We'll soon talk about the engine, of course. There's one more exterior differentiation between Sedan and Sport Turismo. The Sport Turismo has the wing right up here, and there it folds up and down, whereas the Sedan has the wing in the lower part, and in this case with a GTS Sedan it also folds up, not only up but also sideways, like with the turbo. So what do we have under the hood here for the Panamera GTS? A 4-liter V8 turbo, nice engine cover design, 460 horsepower, and the acceleration figure is 4.1 seconds to 100 kilometers an hour or 62 miles an hour. That's just 0.3 seconds slower than the turbo, so just minor, but also just 0.1 seconds faster than the 4S, so yeah, it doesn't make too big of a difference. This one, of course, with a different suspension setup, so yes, the GTS is sportier, and the one, you know, sporty just below the turbo, you can really go up in horsepower figures with the Panamera lineup. Pricing wise, by the way, whereas a base version starts at around 90,000, taking German reference prices, and the turbo is 185,000, the GTS is somewhat in between. So, I mean, you start at about 140, 145,000, but then, of course, when you spec it, you can easily then reach 160, 180,000. So, yes, it remains one of the most expensive vehicles. This is a slim and light key in the form of the Panamera. Of course, you have keyless entry, and we also have a soft close here, like this. Magic. It's an option, of course. You do not have to go for it. Then the GTS is my favorite for the interior because there's plenty use of Alcantara, for example here at the armrest. You can also groom it depending on which style you like, brighter or a little bit darker. So you can pet your Panamera GTS then. Clicking sounds for the window levers. Then we have some, it's a dark brushed aluminum, I would call it, style. Not so much room for bottles at the inside of the doors here below. It's quite slim. Optional Burmester sound system. Then we have those Panamera GTS entry badges for the side. You can see the key basically also is a second one at the left side. It's, well, that you don't have to put it in, but to have this additional key element here, I'm not sure. I would rather prefer just a starting button. Then the GTS also comes with Alcantara steering wheel. That's cool because you can use it with and without gloves, depending on summer and winter time. Doesn't really matter. Also heated, standard. So I'm just showing you the sound, the sound of the button, that you know that it's really there. It's just right here hidden. Then you know that your steering wheel can be heated. An Alcantara steering wheel heated. That is for wintertime really cool. And you have a good sporty grip as well. Then highlights are also those seats. GTS always comes with Alcantara at the inside of the seats, you can see, and those are also those super sport seats with even more electric control, and you can see they are sportier, have more shoulder support. That's good for the racetrack. However, just without any extra price, you can basically step down to the normal sport seats. They also have Alcantara on the inside, like this. but they're a little bit more open, roomish, and not that caged in. So if you go to the racetrack with your Panamera, stick with those. If you rather want more comfort in your everyday driving life, upgrade down without extra price to the base sport seats. You still get the Alcantara, but have more ride comfort. And let's get inside. And well, those seats indeed, they look so cool. The sportier seating variant, I also talked about that with a lot of Mercedes models. The manufacturers tend to pick the sportiest seats always for the presentations because they look sportiest, most dynamic, have cool brand image and stuff. And I mean, they're still quite okay for sport seats, but then again, they are way stiffer than the base sport seats. So the question is really, do you want that extreme hard sporty styling or do you want more comfort? And since we are a format that also addresses the real buyers of those vehicles here, we then usually tell you what's best for your everyday driving. And indeed, I can stress again that the base seats are softer and better for your comfort. Height-wise, 1 meters 86 or 6'1". I guess for the rest of my life, it will rather stay that way, unless I'm sometimes, I'm shrinking maybe when I'm very, very old. That can happen. However, at the moment, it's not happening, and this leaves me still plenty of headroom above my head. And there is a panoramic roof built in here in the front, so that's no problem. Maybe to the A-pillar it gets a little bit close here, but usually also for tall people this will be no problem. So also Ralf Möller will be fine here when he gets his new GTS for sure. The steering wheel can be adjusted electronically below the steering wheel. Here we go. Also in height and reach. Takes a while, but works. And also this driving mode selector here at the steering wheel. We'll talk about that, of course, when we drive the vehicle. So those electric seats, they have a lumbar support in 4 ways. This is for the back part of the seat. This is for height. Always put the back part a little bit up, so your pelvis is a little bit more upright. That's better for the long-term comfort. Here in the front, you can lengthen the seating area for the legs for taller people. And those ones are here for adjusting the side bolsters each. So in the front part for the legs and thigh area, and this one then rather for the side of your body. So there isn't much more you could possibly adjust with the seat. This is the interior overview. Again, as the exterior of a Porsche, the interior is really wrapped tightly. That's their design scheme. The Sport Chrono package here is included with the GTS, also with this analog clock. And then this is the horizontal screen. Again, this brushed aluminum style, matte, really elegant, but not too obtrusive. The screen is all touch. You can see it right here. However, you can still use this knob to zoom in and out. Some more details to that one here. Then again, the perspective of the Alcantara steering wheel with a good grip handle. Driving mode selector. On the left side, you can mute or also change the volume, because that's also good when you can do this, here direct as the volume at the steering wheel. For the ACC, there's still a separate column. Then in the middle part here, there are not so many real buttons left. The AC still has some clicking. Also with metal knurling, quite interesting. And some hotkeys that you can access different stuff on the infotainment system, like phone and so on. In the lower part, you have this automatic shifting lever for the 8-speed PDK, the Porsche dual clutch transmission. The GPS up close, see here, it's responsive enough, also with the map. Then you can connect your phone via Bluetooth still, that is possible. However, you can of course also use the Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. This is also some different app view from Porsche. Climate control you can have here. Well, the vent, let's say, where the vents are coming from. This is only possible to change in the menu here, and you can also see it then changing there below. It's quite interesting electric-wise. And assistance systems you can also control right here, and the sound system you can also have different settings, of course. Overall, you get used to it. At the first time it's a little bit overloaded maybe, but then you get along with it even better after using it quite sometimes. Here, by the way, the CarPlay connection, and interesting also, can we play music while at the same time Now you're using the Apple CarPlay music, yes, and at the same time we can also use the car internal GPS. The instruments analog in the middle part with the big RPM meter, and then on the right side you can already see this is the night vision assistant optionally available. You can also have the GPS route information on the right side, or then also another digital gauge, for example, for trip meter and stuff, or oil temperatures. On the left side you can, for example, have the assistant systems info. And introducing with the GTS, then for all Panamera models, this head-up display, also with multiple colors, with GPS info, speed and allowed speed and stuff, depending on the current situation. That one was missing, finally available. The ceiling, also inside A-pillars and stuff, all also covered with Alcantara and GTS. That makes a sporty atmosphere, but at the same time also a living room atmosphere. And here you can also close and open the panoramic roofs. By the way, with this move, it's an interesting move, right? Thomas' signature move in a GTS Panamera. Here you can also open them, both panoramic roofs, and if you do it the other way around, you close both shades. So by the way, here the vents, this automatic function, so depending on what you have activated, this lower part, there it is. See, it has been closed, now it's open again. So it is adaptive, pretty fancy for sure, but maybe not that necessary. Then here the lower middle console again, the details here for the metal knurling and the shifting lever. This is where you can also change the suspension settings, or also go to those, the sport mode is then activated at the steering wheel, so the sport mode will be activated steering wheel and will then, here it is, so here you can change the driving modes, then it will also appear then here. And this lower part here, this would be then to change the DSC setting, for example, when you want to put it off. Of course not recommended for road use. Then you have this Alcantara cover also of the armrest and adaptive cup holders. Two sizes, a big one and a small one. If you want to rather have it closed, you do it like this, then you have an even surface, can better clean it, or just push it inward again to have the cup holders. You can also open this one. It's not the best mechanism for sure, it's really bulky. And then you have a USB charger, 12-volt power supply, you can have some more USB slots there. There's also this smartphone holder at the right side available here. But the thing that is for sure missing is an inductive charging pad. Now let's get in the rear seats, because why would you go for a Panamera that you can also have rear passengers? First of all, look inside. This one is the Sport Turismo, so the estate, so to say. Also with Alcantara on the rear armpads. Then you have those single seats set up here. Usually it's like this. A sedan Panamera comes with a standard setup like this, a single seat setup, so two single seats. And the Sport Turismo comes with a even through bench. Well, it's not quite even through, I will soon show you that. And then you can optionally go across. So you can also go for here this two-seat setup for the Sport Turismo, but you can also go for the three-seater setup with the sedan. So you have the choice basically, it's just another standard setup. So here with that middle console, there's also the optional rear seat entertainment system you have here. But first of all, as for the legroom, you can see here. And well, there's also a long wheelbase variant available that will have even more legroom, but here you can see even if you're in the non-long wheelbase version, that's still totally okay. Not sure what's the problem on this at the moment. Well, the seating comfort here is mediocre. It's also quite stiff. As for the seating, I think they will also change the rear seats when you go for the base sport seats in the front. The rear seats here should also maybe look a little bit different. Headroom-wise, this is a Sport Turismo with panoramic roof. So the advantage of the Sport Turismo is that you have more headroom when you lean backwards. We will soon compare how it is in the sedan with and without the panoramic roof. This here again with the panoramic roof to the inside, they have more head clearance. To the side then it gets a little bit close. But let me say approximately you have the same or even more headroom here in the Sport Turismo with the panoramic roof than with the sedan without the panoramic roof. So approximately. But you should check that out, the comparison now that is coming ahead. That was a nice one, right? Globally, about a quarter of the customers go now for the Sport Turismo, but in Europe, already half of Panamera customers pick this one here, the Sport Turismo, because it's more flexible, has a lower loading sill right here. This one, by the way, the blue cover is just a little cover still to protect it. You can also put it off, of course. Automatic cover going up and down, and you can see it's a little bit longer in height, so you lose some more height if you go for the Sedan. That's better with the Sport Turismo. 520 liters is the loading capacity here, also displayed with some luggage. Of course, we can also flip the seats. Let me just go around, because you have to go around for that. Then grab at the height of the door handles, and then you have this 2/3, 1/3 split. But as I've shown you earlier, you can also use just the middle part to load things through. And let me also get those bags out. Then you have the maximum loading setup here. Of course, the Sport Turismo is the most clever choice to go for then. You can change the angle of the seat electrically. I'm doing that with my left hand at the moment. You can see that the back part of the seat comes more upright. So that is a little bit more comfortable, and however, really stiff, this rear bench. It is rather designed to look cool than to be comfortable. Then you can also have this armrest right here. There are some Porsche headphones stored in this one here for the rear seat entertainment. You can also use this as a ski hatch singly, but you can also flip the seats. And then this lower part here is for some cup holders, quite shallow. 2 more USB supplies, a third one even, but those ones are cost intensive. They cost a couple of €100 extra. It's really strange extra policy. Here we go. There they are. Because in the front, with only one USB supply, that's not that much. Then here, again, clicking sound. Controls for the temperature, and you have a separate screen here also in the rear, for example for the GPS, that the GPS is being mirrored. The use of that, of course, is somewhat limited. And here you can also see how the 3-seater setup looks like. You see in the middle part, it still looks like single seat style, but there's another seat belt in the middle part. Not really room for your legs, you have to put it left and right. So it is rather an emergency seat, but you still have the possibility. Let's try that out for a second. So first I have to get in normally, and then it gets tricky. I have to move one leg over the huge middle tunnel. Then you sit higher in the middle part, because it's not really formed that well. Legs to the left and the right. And headroom wise, it is actually, I mean, yeah, I do hit the cover, but if I would remove the cover, I would not hit the glass directly. So for shorter trips, it is possible. And of course, you know, when you have some smaller travelers, that's okay. However, Isofix is only at the outside seats each. So for child seats, the middle part is not really usable. And here again, as a contrast, the Sedan with the single seating, so with the 2 single seats and this multimedia console in the middle part where you then cannot sit. This is now a Sedan seating test as for the headroom with panoramic roof. So you can see here, it's the shade close at the moment. And when I put my head back, I can still fit a hand over my head. That's possible. So even if you have the Sedan with a panoramic roof, as long as you're still 1.86 m or 6'1" like me, then it still works also headroom wise. And now here a Sedan seating test for the rear without panoramic roof. So it's definitely more spacious in here. So you can easily lean back, and then there's really more room above your head. So if you're taller than for the rear passenger, then leave out the panoramic roof. However, it's of course always cool. It also depends on your country. When you're in a very hot country like here, without the panoramic roof, the car will always stay cooler. Otherwise, it's nice to leave some light in and stuff. So, but definitely, as always, without the panoramic roof, you have more head clearance. And in the Sedan, you not only have then 520 liters anymore, as in the Sport Turismo. This is then only 495. liters. Well, it's not a big difference, but the loading sill here is way bigger in the sedan. Just some sound equipment right here. And let me show you how that looks like when I flip the seats. This is done with a single seating and with the sedan. And you can see for loading through, it's actually also quite the same with Sedan and Sport Turismo. Just when you have very long things that then reach over this sill here, then you have to pay attention to the monitor, maybe cover it with something. Welcome at 230 kilometers an hour at the Bahrain International Circuit, the Formula 1 GP circuit. We're driving with the Porsche Panamera GTS. We're in the sport mode at the moment, starting in this one, hammering the throttle. Small straight, 180, 190 kilometers an hour. Now hard on the brakes. And the car is really super stable. I mean, it is a heavy car, 2 tons. But the strange thing is, and of course, you know, surprisingly good, it doesn't push me so far out of the corners. That's really interesting. You see, also in the car in front of me a little bit, you still drive rear wheel biased, although you have a all-wheel drive system. I also watch the all-wheel drive meter in the digital instruments. And it is a little bit equal then. When I really hammer the throttle all the way through, I have a lot of power on the front wheels as well. Some paper flying around in the car. So much G-forces applied here always. You can also listen to the sound. Straight, almost 200 kilometers an hour again, now hard on the brakes. Also the ABS is working just a little bit. PDK is still shifting very smoothly, good transitions, so it doesn't annoy the car, so the car remains very calm, very stable. And the GTS, well, as the suspension sits a little bit lower, is indeed suitable for the racetrack. And I've driven other Panamera versions also on the racetrack, and this one here is definitely suitable for that. And those super sport seats now also help me on the racetrack to be kept tight in the seats, since this one is also a high-speed track. So a lot of G-force are applied then. Good grip here on the steering wheel, such a natural steering feel. So now we switch position. So we go now directly behind the instructor. Here we go, overtaking. That's 220 kilometers an hour again. Such high speeds, but in this car you do not feel the speed that much actually. So see, the rear comes around just a little bit, but the electronic helpers keep it stable once more. And it's really interesting. You can remain quite calm. So it's not that this car is super extreme or something. A lot of grip also still from the tires, although we have some ABS where the weight is braking the car in. I think in this case the weight also plays a role to keep the car stable a little bit. And the interesting thing is, recently we've driven the BMW 8 Series, which is a smaller car actually. It will be a competitor when it's the 8 Series Grand Coupe. And this car here handles so much better on the racetrack, although it's a better car. It's more balanced, you don't feel it's overpowered. It has a little less horsepower than the 8 Series, but you just feel it is better balanced as for the power, you know? You can steer it very smoothly around the corner. Here, just braking out a little bit with the rear, but a little bit intended, catching it again. Wow. So I think there's hardly any other car at this weight and this size you could so easily take out on the racetrack. So if you would close your eyes and tell someone who will said the first time in this vehicle, hey, you're driving like a 911 GT3 or something, think, oh yeah, really? Of course you would know the difference if you're a race driver, but still, it is amazing how this car is handling considering the weight and the size of the car. And it feels almost easy to steer around this track, although we're really going now at a quite good pace. You see, as I'm now behind the instructor, we also lost the car behind us a little bit. I mean, it's always when you drive directly behind the instructor, you follow the ideal line, you catch up to him, glue to his rear, you're always driving better, you know? You're always driving better when the driver in front of you is a professional race driver you can really orient to. That's also a very interesting fact. So definitely this lower and stiffer suspension is super much helping on that racetrack. And I just love the Alcantara steering together with the steering setup. Now look, the angle of the corner right here. So the steering exactly mirrors what I'm doing on the road. The perfect feeling for that. Light on the throttle now. Well, I think I have to go a little bit slower now because we lost our other partner here on the racetrack. And here also I feel when it's getting a little bit, sweaty on the steering wheel, that's also good when the Alcantara sets in. I still have a great grip. I don't lose it because there would be slick leather or something. This is also really good for the steering. My legs, by the way, they don't fly around that much. That's also a sign that the suspension is hardly turning in. So I had it sometimes in some vehicles that you were damaging your legs all over the place because you were flying like left and right and left and right all over the place again. And here it's actually really fine. Yeah, I mean, acceleration-wise, this car, as I said earlier, does come very close to a turbo. Just a minor difference, really. And I also feel that V8 power. But again, the power evolvement is still controllable. That's, I think, the key element of this car. Here, it feels like the horsepower figure is directly fitting to the car. Such a great all-wheel drive setup they have here. That said, yes, go birdies, always watch out, also on the racetrack. So for the racetrack, really well approved. We will soon, of course, check out as well how this car handles in normal road driving. Because the question is always, if you go for a sportier version that handles better on the racetrack, does it handle less good on normal road driving conditions? Because most of the time, you would actually drive this car on the road and not on the racetrack. But still astonishing that you can drive a four-door coupe or four-door sedan at this size with such ease on the racetrack. I hope you enjoyed this part here with me as well. And we start our road driving with showing you the camera system, going to the reverse gear. Then you can see those lines right there. It's a little bit, not that sharp at the outside because of the angle. And here this drone view from above, that you can see also how you move backwards. And when you move forward again, you also have a front view camera. Of course, then only when you have the highest camera spec. It's again a couple of €1,000 extra once more. But since the car is quite big, it's useful to have it. The rear axle steering also is quite useful. That we want to cancel this voice command. This is, by the way, also a good test then. Let's see, not with sound. We go to GPS. Now we have to search some options for the GPS. And, this already gets a little bit complicated to find then the right options for the GPS, to mute it. And that's, where I think the GPS settings This is... There we go. And now the music automatically turns up. I don't know why that is. So there it is. Cancel that one. And you know, this is one example how to make things complicated. So how intuitive you really find those stuff or not. So, and on normal road driving, I told you that earlier, you have a rear wheel bias, 90% in the rear, 10% in the front. When you have a GPS map, like we have at the moment, also with the destination set, the interesting thing is that as soon as there is a new intersection approaching, I also get automatically in those two ride gauges here next to the steering wheel and the instruments. So that's quite helpful that when I'm just normally cruising, I have the other information, and as soon as there's the next intersection, here again it switched. So now I have the overdrive distribution, which is, I think, pretty interesting, especially in a review. But then next intersection, it changes to the GPS view there. That's definitely cool to have. And now finally the head-up display, I can also see my current speed. I can match it then with the allowed speed. And also I have a orange arrow where to go to next. At the moment it says I should go straight. That means rather this straight, I guess, than the right straight. Skyline panoramic view of Bahrain, of Manama. And here, since the speed limits are also quite strict, I set the cruise control here at the column at the lower part of the steering wheel, and now we're using this cruise control. The GTS has this lower suspension, it's also stiffer, and you also feel that in road driving. So although you still have the 3-chamber air suspension, it feels definitely stiffer. And yes, it's supposed to be a sportier model, but on the other hand, you have to say, if you want an air suspension, you rather also want a rather soft ride. So you really have to like the stiff setup they picked here for the GTS. And I'm in a normal suspension mode, you know, so I can also make it even stiffer with like one step and even a second step. And yes, I have more support than to the sides, which help me on the racetrack. But for driving live, the normal Panamera air suspension setup is more pleasing for the comfort. Again, thinking of the customer that uses this car every day. Other than that, the noise insulation is again superb. So it's super silent in here. Also when we're going 80 kilometers an hour, you hear nothing. It almost, especially if you compare it to the racetrack, I mean 80 kilometers an hour is not that slow, and it really feels like you would be just standing still almost. It's really strange, but of course positively strange because it's really so silent. The ride is very confident. It sits so well on the road. That's again due to the sporty features. So every lane change makes the ride interesting. Here we go. And of course the changing is so smooth. The rear axle steering steers across at lower speeds with the rear axle, and if we're at higher speeds, it steers in the parallel direction to give you some more driving stability. So really good option to go for, especially since it's not a short vehicle. I tend to say really go for the rear axle steering. That helps you, especially when parking in and out, reduces the turning circle also a lot. So when you're stuck in traffic here, I mean, this is just a red traffic light, so we'll be able to go further. The morning rush hour is over already. You feel that you still sit very low on the road, so you still have this Porsche sports car feeling. So that's different if you compare it to the SUVs at Porsche, where you have already this high seating position. And I already feel again that on the racetrack those seats were really good, but here I could not really imagine to go with those rather stiff seats. And I don't mean the Alcantara surface, I mean the form of the seat and the less cushion they have. I think I don't want to spend like 5 hours in the vehicle. And for a Panamera, I think you should be thinking that. So again, I can really recommend you to pick this option that you can still get the base sport seat, but then still with the Alcantara surface. I've driven so many different versions now of the GTS, both on racetrack and on the road. I think I have tested almost every engine there is, even past ones that are not available anymore. Yeah, about that diesel. And to me, the V6 hybrid so far felt the best fitting to the vehicle, because when you're driving it here in the city, you cannot go crazy anyway, you know? And when you keep it at lower RPMs and also without the extra sports exhaust mode, you can actually drive it quite silently also as for the sound. So this very confident but also relaxing ride, the sportiness which doesn't have to be received all the time. This is a thing that really fits to this V6 hybrid, where you sometimes have these electric periods, then it rolls, engine shuts off, you have a low fuel consumption, for example. It really fits to that, and also is a diesel replacement. Here the GTS, it's a little bit the same than with the V8 turbo. By the way, they're just called turbo, all are turbo now, so there's no naturally aspirated engine anymore. But I just call that one turbo that has even more horsepower. But basically, there's not so much difference then if you think about the GTS and the V8 turbo. Both the V8, both feel almost identical. The turbo's maybe a little bit more screaming. This is the good thing about the GTS, whereas especially the Turbo S, also you have the feeling all the time, I have to push it more. The GTS also leaves you a little bit in peace and silent, if you want. We've seen it earlier on the racetrack, you can hammer it all the way through. It has almost the same performance as the turbo. But when you use this one in a rather calm way, it doesn't attack your soul that much than the turbo does. So in this case, the GTS has an advantage. I think it's an advantage. But then again, the hybrid models, they give you even more serenity to some part, because they also have those electric moments, as I would call them, and the recuperation really works very well. So the all-wheel drive distribution shows me again that the standard one is just a little bit torque to the front, primarily to the rear. As soon as I apply the throttle a little bit harder, it gets closer to 50-50. You know, the harder I apply the throttle, the closer it gets then to the 50-50 distribution. To even it out a little bit, that also makes the acceleration smoother. And as soon as you apply some throttle, even in the normal driving mode, you already hear this roaring sound. So you would rather stay in the normal mode here as well on the road. You can also test the assistant systems, for example the adaptive cruise control. So we can also set or change the distance to the car in front of us. You can push this column to increase the speed. You can resume it to put it up. Or we can also cancel it again, so everything is possible. So now increase the speed. Now I have my foot off the throttle. See the car's reducing the speed, keeping the distance. A very smooth system without big transitions. Goes further and back. The overview, by the way, in the city is somewhat okay. A little bit better with the Sport Turismo if you look to the rear mirror, because you have this rather upright rear window. And to the side, you have those very nice round side mirrors, but you can still see very well. That's also a difference to the real sports car models from Porsche that are more narrow, also as for the front screen. The Panamera more gives you then something of a journey experience, so to say. However, if you think about the Panamera versus a Cayenne, due to the upright SUV seating position, it gives you more traveling feeling and more traveling comfort than the Panamera. The Panamera is somewhat let's say the compromise between the Cayenne and the 911. If you still want somehow sports car look and some sports car low feeling, but want more comfort than in a 911. That's, you know, and of course the space you have then in the rear. So you can see the GTS is also suitable as a road cruiser here in the city, also with all those assistance systems. You have to go for them optionally. Porsche then argues, yeah, not everyone wants all assistance systems. Maybe, but then maybe include them. And then people can pick them down or something, you know. That would be maybe a more fair choice than making everything extra. And, you know, it gets really, really cost intensive with those vehicles. So let's see, I think I have to go to the left. A little bit confusing here at times. First time I'm driving here, but I think it's still quite relaxing. The roads are very wide. Alcantara steering wheel is also not only good on the racetrack, but also here it's just a cozy feeling, you know. Most of the time you do not need the heated steering then, because it stays in a neutral warm temperature all the time. And also it's not sweaty or something when it's really getting hot. However, the AC of course has to work a lot then when it's quite hot outside. 30 degrees Celsius, that's way up in the 80s in Fahrenheit. Should be, right? Not the best in calculating by heart yet, but that should be accurate. Also have a blind spot monitor, by the way. Maybe you've already seen it on camera. That's this black field then in the side mirror. And as soon as something is appearing in the blind spot, we should have that flashing as long as it's not turned off. And it seems to be turned off. So, and that's the thing here now again. When you're searching for stuff like that in this infotainment system, you think like, where do I start, you know? And for example, with Mercedes, with the assistance systems, they have left next to the steering wheel, they have a button, and then you deactivate it or activate it. And that's it. So I would immediately know where that is. But here, I don't know. I have to search for it. But I mean, this black part would be flashing then. I mean, I can, for example, activate the cruise control once more, and then, you know, start searching for some assistance system, but it's also quite unsafe. There's an assist. So, lane changing assistant, or what is it? There it is. Yeah. So that went quite okay still, but that's definitely a problem of those assistance systems. You know, they are definitely distracting, especially if you find something and don't know where it is. There it is now, the yellow flash in the mirrors. One of the most important ones you can go for optionally, for sure, I think. You should definitely have that one. The blind spot can save your life. Well, the blind spot can damage your life, but the blind spot monitor can save your life. Let's take it that way around. So I have been cruising here mostly, and that is also a good thing because on the racetrack we cannot really test the consumption. Here we can, and this should be like the minimum consumption that is available for the petrol, and that is 11 point something liters on 100 kilometers. I think it will be dropping down a little bit, but whoa, that was close. Overtaking me from behind, that was really close. Yeah, I mean, considering we're just cruising, that's of course too much. However, it's a V8 engine, you can't expect too much of it. But that's also showing the advantage of the hybrid again, because we did those testings that even when the hybrid was depleted battery-wise, just by using the recuperation and the rolling functions of the vehicle, you can score consumption as for 7 liters on 100 kilometers. So 4 liters less than the pure petrol engine. And that's of course impressive. So, but again, the advantages of the GTS, surely more on the racetrack with this good punch you get and the roaring sound. Of course, the nice sporty Alcantara atmosphere. Just mentioning so often the V6 hybrid because it's one of the most popular engines out there now, next to the base engine. So you can really see which one might make sense for you. Again, go back to the nav, have to go for this one, or reach over to the very right side to click the nav button and get there again. So again, for using the hotkeys and stuff, I think
sometimes too distracting overall, the setup. Then it's really good that the GPS map automatically pops up in my instrument cluster there again. Oh, this one was going far to the side. Quite interesting to see some driving behaviors here. But overall, it's rather calm here. I think due to the strict traffic rules, most people might also stick to them then in this case. So that's about calm driving, highway, city cruising for this car. Again, yes, the racetrack is more spectacular, but overall, what I'm doing here is probably what most people will do in this vehicle from day-to-day basis.
And now to our conclusion for today with the Porsche Panamera GTS. Well, you have the most aggressive styling of the model lineup because you have those black contrasts, that's for sure. The interior is probably the best in the lineup because you have the great Alcantara used all over the vehicle. As I said earlier, if you want more comfort, then go for the base sport seats. If you want to go on a racetrack like here today, then those seat form will be better for you. Driving-wise, it is really incredible how well this car handles on a racetrack, given its size and its weight. That speaks really for this great sportiness they've delivered with the car. However, make no mistake that the GTS version will give you less comfort in everyday driving. So if you seek more cruisable glider in the Panamera, you'll also be just fine with the base version, with the base engine too, or maybe that new V6 hybrid engine that is really very popular all over the world now. So that's a differentiation. It's not as expensive as the turbo, but already quite expensive for sure. So not as aggressive, but already as fast. That's where the GTS is lined up. What do you think? Leave me your feedback on this very vehicle and also tune in to our other episodes of the Porsche Panamera lineup.